NWA back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, DKM, and J Cal.
Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. With me, of course, is the wonderful, absolutely gem of a human being, DKM, and the former World Junior Heavyweight Champion, Mr. Kevin Frazier. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Yo.
What's happening? Hopefully my signal okay.
As you can may or may not know, our pal Kev is on the road, and my camera's being fun already. So he's going to try to get to a good spot, try to get home. But we're going to be talking NWA. We're going to talk about this week's Power episode. We're going to talk a little bit about the primetime live pay-per-view that's happening this weekend, if you guys don't mind indulging me just for a moment. But I do want to say, hey, welcome back.
Just a moment.
We missed you last week, Devin. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I guess I'm doing okay. Was coming home from the mountains last week at this time. So, not sad because I'm not in the mountains anymore.
Well, I don't blame you for being sad because you're not in the mountains anymore, but at least you're here amongst friends. You're here amongst people that care about you. And so real quick, today marks literally the 2-year anniversary of the first time that NWA Power ever was on recorded. The first episode of NWA Power happened this time 2 years ago down at the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studios. Fans and people from all across the country came to Atlanta, Georgia, to see the first episode of NWA Power. I was one of those guys, and it was quite a unique event. It kicked off with a press conference at the Hard Rock Cafe, and it was just such a weird experience being there because it was more pomp and circumstance than I'd ever seen before a wrestling show at this level. And it was such a rapid turnaround because they filmed for 2 days, and then 8 days later they were airing on YouTube. The first match that kicked off the whole thing was the Dawsons taking on Rinauro and Billy Buck. I haven't seen much of Billy Buck ever since, and the Dawsons have gone by the wayside. The roster has changed quite significantly in the last 2 years. Of course, the pandemic changed the direction the show was going back last 2020. And so the show has been a very different vehicle than it was when it first premiered on YouTube. But you have to say that it's pretty interesting that the show's gone now. They call it 6 seasons. A total of 42 episodes have aired, whether it be on YouTube or Fight, with an additional 5 episodes of POWERRR Surge and 6 pay-per-views. So today is NWA Power's birthday, and I want to say happy birthday to the NWA Power.
I don't know if you can hear me say happy birthday, but happy birthday, NWA Power.
DK, do you have any positive thoughts about NWA Power over the last 2 years, 6 seasons?
They've had a few good episodes.
Dave Scooby was there, and he said that he didn't know what to expect. He loved it. It brought back memories of Central States Wrestling in KC when he was a kid. What I liked about it is it was very similar to what I kind of had been watching for the last decade with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood NWA Hollywood, a show that Kevin Frazier was a part of. It had that very much studio vibe to it, and it did call back to the whole Jim Crockett Promotions, seeing those shows in the studios back in the day. So it kind of felt reminiscent of yesteryear. You guys have anything else you want to add to that?
No.
I mean, I would, but I'm afraid I'm not going to come across very well, so.
All right, well, then moving right along, I do want to say hey, hi, and how are you to our pals in the chat. We got Lou Thez in the house. Terry McDermott's here. Dave Scooby, of course. Willie Bowen is in the house. And if you guys, if you're here and you're enjoying the show, please give that thumbs up, like, subscribe. We're at 699 subscribers now on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook or Twitch, we really would appreciate you jumping on YouTube and hitting that subscribe button. If you're watching it elsewhere, just make sure you give us a like and a follow. It kind of helps the show get traction, and we're hoping that more and more people will join our community. It looks like we lost Kevin for a minute. We'll bring Kevin back on when he gets back backing up. But this is again, this is like the 6th week of programming now for the NWA Power since the 73rd anniversary show, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. I do want to acknowledge that the United Wrestling Network is doing their pay-per-view this week. It's actually Saturday. They're doing a double shot at the Commerce Casino here in Southern California. They're going to be taping not only episodes for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but then they're also going to be airing a live pay-per-view that will be available on Fight TV for $9.99. They're crowning their world's heavyweight champion, God willing, of course, Chris Dickinson, Michael Bennett. We saw the tournament. We talked about the tournament. We were all about the tournament last year. DKM, what are your thoughts on this matchup, and who do you have in it?
Well, first of all, I think that the betting odds on it actually taking place are like, 1,000 to 1. Because there just seems to be a curse with this damn title. And so, how many years been since UWN was
12.
UW 12?
12 years.
Wow. So, guess good old PJ missed that one, didn't he? Anyway, look, I hope the match takes place. I kind of really wish it wasn't with guys who are probably better known for their ROH stuff right at the moment. So, hopefully it takes place. Hopefully somebody's crowned as champion. I don't know how long ago ran as champion. I can't say at this point I'm overly excited for either man. So I think just enough has changed in the world since they originally did the tournament that I'm just kind of like, I don't know that it matters anymore who wins.
All right.
I mean, are you excited for somebody? Is there somebody you want to win? Is there somebody that you think will carry the flag of the great United Wrestling Network?
Well, I mean, look, things have changed quite a bit in 2021. When we would talk about United Wrestling Network in the past 12 years, it was mostly focused on just what was happening in Hollywood. You had ancillary promotions in Arizona. There were guys who were a part of the association in Arizona and in Utah and Texas, but nothing really substantial. There was nothing even close to what they were doing in Hollywood. But now, with the advent of Championship Wrestling Memphis, and of course they're doing Championship Wrestling from Atlanta, it actually tapes a week later. It really feels like their ball is starting to roll for the United Wrestling Network. Now, I know this is all still very preliminary because Atlanta, this is only their second taping, but they're now 2 weeks into the show that airs on Peachtree TV out there in Atlanta, Georgia, and with affiliates all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. And then you've got Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has kind of been on this pause while they've been trying to reevaluate what they were going to do. Their old venue is no longer accessible to them. So now they'll be at the Commerce Casino. So now you have two properties filming on two separate coasts with Memphis right there in the middle. You've got 3 territories now in the United Wrestling Network, and that doesn't include what they're doing with Primetime Live. So there's 4 actual properties that are associated with the United Wrestling Network that actually have TV. And so I would say, like, this is probably one of the more exciting times for the United Wrestling Network. I think this is going to be one of those situations where, yeah, whoever holds that title at the end of the night, he's not just going to be in Hollywood. He's not just going to be in Memphis. He's going to be in all 3 of those properties, and, of course, Primetime Live making 4. So, personally, you know, you've got Mike Bennett, who just had a hell of a match with Jonathan Grisham in Championship Wrestling from Atlanta. That match hasn't aired yet. You've got Chris Dickinson, who recently lost the Ring of Honor tag team titles. I don't know which way it's going to go, but if I'm pulling for either one of them, I think Chris Dickinson is more apt to carry the United Wrestling Network going forward. And that's not to put down Mike Bennett, because we saw how great of a challenge he was to Nick Aldis. We saw how great of a tournament competitor he was in this United Wrestling Network tournament. So I think that there's a lot of positive going for this pay-per-view. But I think Chris Dickinson's going to walk out the winner. Kevin, I know you just joined us. We're talking about the United Wrestling Network World Championship Tournament that concludes on Saturday, and we just lost Kevin, so we'll skip that and move on to move on to NWA Power. Now, this episode of NWA Power, you know, I had McDonald's for dinner tonight. I don't like McDonald's. I really actually dislike McDonald's. My wife is out of town, and my little children love McDonald's. And so they insisted that that's what we have for dinner tonight. So I ate McDonald's for dinner tonight, and I have a very bad taste in my mouth. But what was worse tasting in my mouth was this last episode of NWA Power. Because this episode severely lacked what looked like a super promising card, what looked very interesting on paper, failed to deliver in any way, shape, or form. And you've heard us be very critical of the NWA in the past. We will sing its praise when we feel like they're doing something good, but we will also be the first ones to put it down when it's not very good. And this episode was not very good. DK, I mean, on the surface, what did you think of this show?
It may have been, and I'll admit that I've blotted some out of my memory, but it may have been the worst show since they've come back from the pandemic. I mean, there were things on it I didn't understand why you would do what you did. I didn't understand. I mean, some of the matches were just plain bad. God, it wasn't good. I mean, I'm trying to think of something that was redeeming about it. And I mean, production mistakes that we'll bring up a little bit later, that it's just like, you couldn't have thought this through and, you know, made a change and said, oh, that's stupid. But I'm kind of curious to see how many people caught it when we get to that issue.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know if I even could tell you where I saw the production issues, because there was just so many other glaring things that kind of smacked me in the face about this show. It kicked off with Tim Storm interviewing Strictly Business. Now they removed our friend Kyle Davis out of the podium because it was a volatile situation. Now, I don't recall ever in the past that Kyle Davis being threatened by Strictly Business. I don't recall that ever happening in the past. Maybe Aldis threatened to send him to the hospital, but never put hands on him. Certainly never attacked him. And but for whatever reason, it it felt like they're trying to put fuel to the fire there by having Tim Storm ask these questions, and he was direct and to the point. There was no, going around it. He just came out and said directly, "Why did you attack Melina? Why did you attack Trevor Murdoch?" And he quoted, or I'm quoting him and saying that it doesn't sound like this was strictly business. And I mean, I thought that was a great line, but Camille punched Melina. We saw a few weeks back because Melina was running her mouth about Camille. I mean, that was pretty self-explanatory. Joe Galley asked Camille that last week on the Power Surge episode. We kind of already have the answer to that. Camille just doesn't like it when someone's talking trash about her, and she went and took care of it. Why did they attack Trevor Murdoch? I don't really recall them attacking Trevor Murdoch. I recall the match coming to, falling apart there at the end of the slapping contest, but I don't recall any strictly business coming out and attacking Trevor Murdoch last week. Am I imagining things, DK, or?
Look, this was done to set up the next event. Yeah, it didn't make sense. I didn't get it. But obviously it was personal. I mean, Melina came out one week with, our beloved national heavyweight champion with probably the most underused title in the NWA currently. And, I don't remember them explaining why she was out there with him. Now I don't know why I know why Camille's attacking her. Yes, you would expect her to attack somebody that does it. But, it was almost like that one time was completely forgotten. We don't have to remember things. We don't have to make things make sense because, break a little kayfabe here. We're recording things out of order. So, we just put them together as best we can. And, this was done for the reason of setting up the in-ring confrontation. That's it.
And of course, that's exactly what happened. I mean, they started pushing buttons right away. Tom Latimer, and I'm sure Kevin popped when he said it, calls Tim Storm an old fart and told him not to ask him questions anymore. That pissed Tim Storm off. I could you imagine Tim Storm being your high school teacher and you sassing him and him getting all Tim Storm on you, turning into the perfect storm right there in class. And so he heads to the ring and he's fired up. Then you get Joe Galley, who again is I love Joe Galley as a play-by-play. I think does a great job as being a commentary for the NWA, but I don't need to see him ever leave that desk in any way. He runs over to try to stop Chris Adonis. Then you got Kyle Davis jumping up to try to stop Latimer. You even get Velvet Sky jumping up to try to diffuse the situation. We've never seen the announcers all leave the booth to try to stop something like this. And it just seemed like, what's going on? And then Nick Aldis, he's wearing black jeans and a black dress shirt, but no tie, no sports coat, not traditional Nick Aldis, comes out and tells them to back off. And they listen, but begrudgingly so. And it just felt like, well, this is forced, man. Like, we all know what's coming next. We all know what's going to happen next. Nick Aldis is sitting there trying to diffuse the situation by telling them to back off. And even Tim Storm is shocked to see Aldis behind him. But again, like, this is just reeks of, like setting up a horseman type swerve. I don't get it. DK, do you have any final thoughts on that part?
It was stupid. I mean, if ring announcers are going to get up and go to the ring this time, try to stop wrestlers, then you can't get upset if they would get beat up. They didn't get beat up, which is almost more crazy. Nick Aldis coming down with his new found personality. You know, like you said, they're either setting up a big swerve or they're setting up the eventual turn of Strictly Business for him. It's going to be one of two options. And the sad thing is I don't care which one it is at the moment. and I'm serious about that because, you know, you're supposed to get lost in wrestling. You're supposed to know that it's all right to know that one of those two things are happening, but you should be excited to figure out which one.
Right.
But Nick Aldis is, again, he's very overexposed on the show. I was so hoping he would take time off after his loss and just work in the back. And it's, you know, the whole thing from start to finish made practically no sense. Did it advance the storyline? Sure, I guess. I mean,
what's the storyline though? That's the thing. Like, what? It's nothing is black and white, and it's not even gray, really. I mean,
to me, the storyline is Nick Aldis being in opposition to his group. And I remember he was the one that was coming in saying nobody's position was safe, and, you know, blah this and blah that. So I don't know. I can't say they've done the best job of building this. I didn't like it. I mean, just playing, did not like it. It didn't do anything for me other than make me go, ugh.
Yeah, I agree. I just, and you know, our pal Kev, he's having he's still on his way home, but he says hokey, and I mean it's exactly what it was. It was hokey. This was you know, we talk about the rich history and tradition of the National Wrestling Alliance, but this is hokey. This isn't what that was. Okay. And then Terry McDermott said this is pretty good. He says, I like Joe, but he needs to leave the wrestlers alone. Just ask John Stossel. That would be amazing. If someone were to slap Joe Galley across the face, and I don't want that. I like Joe Galley a lot. I think he's a great dude, but that might teach him to stay away from the ring. The next bit of action we get, and I use that term loosely, is we get Mae Valentine back, who was sorely missed last week. Gary Horn did a great job doing those interviews, but I always kind of felt like that was Mae Valentine's spot. And she was here live in front of the podium interviewing Melina.
Nothing against Gary, but no. Mae's much easier on the ice.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
Melina speaks to the purpose and the importance of the championship, and that the title has so much meaning to it, and the champion needs to be paving the way for all the people that are coming after them. This was, again, like, Melina, get off your high horse. Again, I don't get it. Like, if you don't like Camille, that's fine. But you were the one that just a few years ago was trying to use your leverage to challenge Thunder Rosa for the World's Championship without getting it cleared by the NWA front office. I just felt like, again, Kevin said hokey. This was hokey. It just doesn't make any sense. And I almost feel like they were stalling for time just for Chelsea Green to come out there holding the cup, saying, Melina, what have you ever done for the business? I defeated 9 other women. I won the cup. I should be women's world champion. Again, what's the booking? What are we trying to do here? Are we setting up Melina versus the hot mess Chelsea Green, or what's going on? I couldn't really make heads or tails of what was going on here.
Yeah. I don't know that we needed the hot mess back this soon. You know, I admit that I've missed these shows since she's come back and reverted to that character. It got over in TNA. It was popular. Maybe it'll be popular again. I don't know. I wish we had taken a little more time and a little more seriousness. Look, a lot of what we saw on this episode, I could have seen on an episode of TNA, or I could have seen on an episode of WWE. And so I don't know that I needed to see any of it. Melina did make a great face when Chelsea Green came out, but outside of that, she was just kind of going blah, blah, blah. You forgot the fact that she wanted Thunder Rosa to actually lay down for her.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
Miss the title's important and should be respected and whatever.
I want to point out, Kevin said the hot mess gimmick really devalues Chelsea Green. And I have to agree with him on that. She went from being one of the competitors at, the odds-on favorite. When her name was announced, both you and Kevin were like, yep, that's who we need in this tournament to legitimize it. That's somebody that could be a true challenge for Camille. And all three of us were excited to see her name involved. Now we're getting a rehash of a TNA gimmick that just, I think it ran its course. And it's like, I know Billy was involved with Impact during those days, but is he literally just rehashing Impact's story while he was there here in the NWA? Or is that what we're getting now? Because I didn't sign up for that, and I don't know about you, but I'm not really interested in that. I didn't watch Impact then for the same reason why I don't watch it now, because that didn't appeal to me. And this kind of just turned me off too. So,
this goes, I only saw about 3 minutes of last week's show where you guys were talking, and we were pointing out that you got to be something different.
Yeah.
You're not going to out WEE the WWE. You're not going to out AEW AEW. And God, you don't want to suck as bad as TNA Impact, former TNA Impact, because they really suck. So you're not going to be as good of a version of any of those things. So you got to be something else. You got to be your own unique brand. I mean, and that's ROH has their thing going, and they've been really good since the return from the pandemic. And they still primarily record without an audience, and their shows are still good. MLW kind of sucked up until they got the audience back, but when they decided to move storylines forward in a bigger way, when they could do in front of people, look, one of the hottest things being talked about in wrestling right now is Hammerstone versus Jacob Fatu. Go Hammerstone. And, so they could have a good storyline going with their world title right now, which we'll talk a little bit about more. But there's not, the storyline on the TV title sucks. Please put Pope back. Give him another chance to get 7. The national title is so meaningless. The women's title is not that it's meaningless, but I think when you have somebody like Camille, it's almost like, yeah, okay. She's going to hold the title. She's going to hold the title for a long, long time. And so there's an air of excitement that's missing, because I don't know that Camille has the great champion effect of, I just want to see her wrestle. Somebody like Ric Flair or, back in the day, Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Hulk Hogan was a face champion that lasted 4 years his first time around. And it was because people want to see him. It didn't really matter who his challengers were. His probably only top challengers that mattered to anybody were Randy Savage and later, and Andre the Giant. But, we didn't care if he was facing a way past his prime Harley Race. If he was facing King Kong Bundy, who? I mean, people went to see Hulk Hogan. I don't think Camille has that yet. She's not someone who you just want to see. So, but you also know they're likely not going to take the title off her anytime soon. And if they did, they probably wouldn't do it in the correct way. And so you're kind of stuck with just like, okay, there's Camille. And we don't see anyone in the division who's hot, running hot besides her at the moment. And then you have the women's tag team titles. And yeah, that's about all that needs to be said. They have them. And they have the world tag team champions who, first time besides the Rock and Roll Express, that they have like a tag team holding.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. They're better off in Mexico. Stay there, guys.
Isn't that sad? I mean, that's kind of sad, right? It shouldn't be like that, but it is. Dave Scooby says, too many titles for the amount of time the NWA has programming. And I have to agree. Like, I feel like introducing the women's tag team titles was very premature. And I get it. You wanted to make Empower a big deal. But, we were already talking about how poorly utilized the NWA national title was, let alone them introducing. Oh, great. I think my camera died. Awesome. There we go. We were already talking about how terrible utilized the national title was, and that it wasn't getting enough camera time. And I think that the vehicle of the Pope as a television champion, he was so charismatic that you had to pay attention. They had to find a way to put him on TV because he was interesting. He was entertaining. When Thunder Rosa was women's champion, you always wanted to see her on television. And when the title was in AEW with Serena Deeb, the storyline was Thunder Rosa Camille getting to that title. But, they didn't have to show the title for you to feel like it was meaningful. And the way that the titles are now, it's just like all of them are overexposed. Now we're seeing every title every week, and it's not like in a good way. We're not seeing title defenses. Camille's there every week wearing her championship belt, but she hasn't defended the title since the pay-per-view. We haven't seen the women's tag team champions defend their titles. I know they're building towards that, but, I don't need to necessarily see how the sausage is made. I just want my hot dog. I don't necessarily need to see all the inner workings of how you get to the match. Just give me a match. The women's division doesn't have a good enough talent to have a tag team division yet. It just doesn't. And I feel like that was kind of a premature gesture.
So, did they have any wrestling on the show?
No, there was no wrestling. No, actually, just kidding. There was some wrestling. The next up, we get the quarterfinal tournament for the quarterfinal tournament for the World Tag Team Champions. As DK alluded to, our friends, and they're not really our friends, the World Tag Team Champions, La Rebellion, took the titles, went to Mexico, although they were on television last week saying that's what they were going to do. They've already done it. They're already in Mexico. They're already wrestling. You could go to our YouTube channel and check out the match that they teamed up with Rey Horas versus La Nueva Generación Dinamente. Anyways, fun match. They left. And so the NWA is looking for number one contenders to challenge for those tag titles. And hopefully before the next pay-per-view, we'll have some top contenders for those titles. This week was the quarterfinal tournament between Hawks Ari and the makeshift tag team of Colby Corino and Jay the God. The match started off fair enough. Luke and JTG shake hands. It's kind of funny when you watch this match. Colby Corino is definitely working as a heel. JTG is still kind of working as a face. So he didn't really have to cross any lines. He wasn't cheating. He didn't do anything dishonest or dishonorable or anything like that. It's pretty straight up. And another interesting part about this match is they kind of reversed roles with PJ and Luke, where normally Luke Hawk is the guy that is, that hot tag to come in to take control of the match. And normally PJ is the face in peril. This week it was the opposite. And Luke was kind of having his troubles working with JTG and Colby. And it was PJ getting the hot tag. So I thought that was interesting. The match finished with it looked like an assisted back body drop. I think they botched the finish, but I'm sure Kevin could tell us more or less if that's what happened. And the Hawks Aries got the victory. DK, what did you think of this match? What did you think of this one?
Okay, in isolation, the match didn't make any sense because they teamed again a heel with the babyface without any real reason why. Again, Billy Corgan hates tag teams. So he doesn't like to put real tag teams together. He likes these little makeshift things, and if there is a real tag team, he wants drama if he can at all have it. And if you just get into the fact that this was a tournament to determine top contenders to the World Tag Team titles, makes even less sense. But if we strip everything else away and we just sit there and go, 2 men here and 2 men there wrestling each other, it wasn't a bad match. It wasn't a great match, but it wasn't a bad match. And yeah, it's supposed to be an assisted power slam at the end, and it did get botched. Okay, that happens. If, like I said, if you just isolated it as in 2 men versus 2 men and don't put any story in it and just watch the match itself, it was okay in my book. I didn't hate it. But when you try to make sense out of it, it just flies out the window. Kevin, you're alive.
How's my audio?
You're very echoing.
Y'all both spoke at the same time, so I don't know if it's good or not.
You're very echoey.
Give me a thumbs up if it's good. Oh, I'm echoey, huh? See if I can Bluetooth. How about now?
It's a little bit better.
No?
It's a little better.
If it's bad, give me a thumbs down. Okay. Well, hopefully the chat will tell me how bad I am. Well.
So we're talking about the tag match. Kevin, we're talking about the tag match between Colby Corino and Jay the God versus Hawk Ari. And what DK was just saying, that in a vacuum, the match wasn't half bad. It wasn't, a great match, but it wasn't half bad. What were your thoughts on that tag team match?
I mean, Colby Corino he actually makes me feel like I'm paying too much for the show. I almost feel like he makes me feel like I need to get a little money back every time he wrestles. In putting this team together was just dumb. Like, it was dumb. They lost. So what is even the point? I didn't get it. And then, like you guys, it looked like they did botch the finish. So yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I agree with you guys when you talked about the show itself just being this. We're back in the Twilight Zone, and one of the best parts of the show used to be the production, the camera, the quality of the view that we got. The lighting was great. It was good. Not even that is good right now. And so I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what they're thinking. And yeah, this match was, again, it's just kind of like I'm going to have to revert back to my mindset of not taking the show seriously so that I can enjoy it.
I mean, it's kind of hard to argue against that. You know what I mean? Because this show regressed pretty aggressively. Like, this was aggressive regression. It wasn't good. You know, and when you look at the state of professional wrestling right now, right? NXT 2.0, it's essentially a studio wrestling show. AEW's Dark is now studio wrestling. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Atlanta, Championship Wrestling from Memphis. These are all studio wrestling shows.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
James has an excellent statement in the chat. I just wanted to get it out while it was still relevant. And talking about the tag team tournament, he goes, it was like they said, let's take these random matches we have and call it a tournament.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty close. And even like the qualifying match that they had early on with they put James Staley and Sam Adonis or Sam Rudo together, El Rudo together, and it kind of worked. But then they were facing who? Hunter or Rush Freeman and Captain Yuma? Like, what in the world? The ill-begotten, I think is what they called them. Like, no, how about the awful tag team pairing? It just didn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, I think it's just very like indie-ish to just throw a tag team together and then give them a name and say, oh yeah, that team. Like, I like what James said. It's like, let's just throw some matches together and call it a tournament. It's like, why not just have tag matches between tag teams and then the best one is the contender?
I mean, ideally, that's what they would do. I mean, you talk about a tag tournament, and who's really a tag team in the NWA at this point? I mean, let's be honest. We're gonna count Kratos and Stevens because you're former tag team champions. You've got Hawksari, a legitimate tag team. You've got The End, again, a legitimate tag team. Who else?
The champions, if you want to count them.
Sure.
Well, as DK says, they hate tag wrestling on this show.
Yeah. So that brings us to the next segment, which is a recorded earlier Scion promo. Now, I want to point out something to everybody listening, watching, whatever. Did you notice what Nick Aldis was wearing to start the show, right? When he came in and stopped Tim Storm from getting attacked by Strictly Business, the black dress shirt, right? And they cut to what we get now is Scion with the mask on and wearing a black shirt. I'm just saying. Maybe there's a correlation there. Anyways, Scion basically cuts a promo alleging that, hinting, basically declaring his intentions to challenge Tyrus for the television title at the December 4th pay-per-view, Hard Times 2. Don't know what to think about that. Kevin, what did you think?
Scion's like Colby Carino. It's like, I feel like I should get some money back every time he comes on. Like, Scion's on there. Like, let's start the meter. You got to give me back $1 for every minute that guy's on TV. And what about, actually, I'm glad you put up the What Would Luthez Do thing. Because I think this is like, in all seriousness, this is the worst response you could ever get from a fan who's paying to go see your show. Like, I am like, what Luthez, I'm going to honestly, because I know they won't, I'm going to apologize to you on their behalf for the awfulness. And my encouragement to you is don't go back. I mean, How bad is that? Like, you paid for a live event, and you will never wow. So they didn't even care about the experience of the people that might have traveled from all over the country to go see the show and paid for tickets. And they didn't care whether what they put out there was crap or not. And if it's bad for us watching it like we're watching it, I can't imagine what it would have been live. And they're probably piping out. If I was there, they'd have probably either thrown me out or piped out all my booze.
They had to send Latimer after you.
Hey, that'd have been a good match, though.
Dave Scooby says they had all the talent here from the pay-per-view, so I guess they thought they had to use them. Sometimes less is more.
Or you could just use them intelligently. I mean,
yeah.
You know, they've had Judas in multiple work rate style matches, and I'm going, why not just have him go out there and kill like Sal Rinauro and kill Colby Corino and kill these jabronis? Like, have him go out there and kill people. That's how you build a guy like that. Then you put him out there in a match where, you know, he works a 7-8 minute match, or maybe it doesn't go that, maybe it goes longer, but it's the kind of brawl outside, choke slam somebody on the floor, you know, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, there's so much, I mean, you could just be so much simpler in your approach with this stuff. And it's like, it's kind of like what we talked about before, where it's like, you got your guys that should be wrestling 5-minute matches, wrestling 15-minute matches. And you got your guys that should be wrestling 15-minute matches, wrestling 5-minute matches. And it just doesn't make any sense. And actually, something you guys were talking about with Camille is that you guys know I'm not a Camille hater whatsoever. I'm a pretty big supporter. But here's the deal: there's only a very small percentage of wrestlers in history that you can just slap a title on them, and they can just carry the interest of the audience. You're talking about Hulk Hogan. You're talking about a once in a lifetime. You're talking about Ric Flair. These are once in a lifetime talents. I'm not saying Camille's not that, but she's just not the hold the title, create interest type wrestler. She's the, you know, like, win the title and then hold it for a little bit, and then, you know, either an underdog beats her or, you know, somebody finds a way to screw her out of the title. It just, her holding the title and just beating people, it's ho-hum. It's bad. It's lazy booking.
I'm sitting here laughing over here at our boy DK because he's just eating popcorn, enjoying the show here. James H. Jackson says, I'm thinking December is almost here, and I'm not impressed enough to order yet another pay-per-view. And I mean, look, let's put it all out on the line here. We do know that on October 24th, the NWA will have a joint event with Tried and True Pro Wrestling, by any means necessary, which will be available on Fight. I don't know if that's a pay-per-view or if it's just a free show. I don't know what's going on with that. But it's going to have in a cage Jack Stane versus Crimson. Now that sounds really delightful to me. We'll talk more about Jack Stane later in the show and Crimson. But then also, again, with the women's tag team, again, another thrown together tag team. Team Hex will defend against Kylie Ray and Tootie Lynn Ramsey. So again, it's just all right. I don't really understand the booking. I don't really understand what's going on here. You know, these shows, they tape these shows with the intention of building up to the pay-per-view, which is, you know, 3 months away. But what they've done so far, to James Jackson's point, is it just hasn't done anything to get me excited yet. And we're like, what, 6 weeks of TV now? Still not there. Terry McDermott
the other direction.
Yeah, well, it's like a rudderless ship. Terry McDermott says she doesn't have the same it factor like Thunder Rosa, and I believe he's talking about Camille.
Right.
And then James says, and I'm someone who has ordered every pay-per-view since the reboot.
Well, and I'm going to jump in like, okay, and not to be argumentative, I do think she has the it factor, but she doesn't have the skill set like Thunder Rosa does to go out there and wrestle like match after match and it'd be really good. Like, I'm not saying I thought her matches over the pay-per-view weekend were good. They weren't great, but again, you need someone with a little more charisma and mic skills to carry interest through between title defenses. Unless what would actually be more interesting is if she went out there and like killed all the jobbers on the squad on the program, just so we can see her beat some people up. And that would be a good gimmick because that would get heat for her not facing top contenders.
Well, and I think that's a problem for them too, is they don't want to admit that anyone on the roster is enhancement. When that's when they introduced her, they fed her a couple of jobbers who we haven't seen since, and I think that's what they should be doing. You're right. I think on both accounts, and we'll get to the next match here in just a second, but they could have totally had just fed her some local jobber, some nobody, and gave her a solid win on this week when so little happened. But let's get back to it. We get a promo with the Idol Sports Management, and it's basically everybody in the on the team, everyone in the office is against Scion challenging Tyrus. Idol says that they're not just going to hurt him; they're going to kill him. Clearwater says it's 111% a bad decision and everything else. It just didn't, again, they don't want to see Scion one-on-one with good reason. But again,
well, we don't want to see Scion one-on-one.
Do I want to see Scion do anything? I don't want to see him wrestle. I don't want to see him cut promos. I don't want to see his body. No. And if this is I'm actually believing the gimmick now that this has got to be one of Corgan's buddies, because how in the hell else is this guy getting TV time? Which is an insult, by the way. Just FYI, that's not good.
Well, I I agree, and I think this is one of those things where I don't know what they originally had planned. I agreed with you. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and again it happens. But I think this is something where they lost their direction. Where I think they had a general plan of what they were going to do with him when they brought him in, and then somewhere along the way they totally changed it.
Because they realized he sucks.
Well, I'm hoping that's what they realized, but they're still using him. Look, I am no Tyrus fan, but at least he can cut a promo. And they certainly haven't booked him well in matches. Again, another guy who should be squashing people. And then, has a competitive match with a guy that just barely beats the midget definition. And I'm sorry, but it's true. I was so hoping that they were done with him, Black G's or whatever he goes by. I see it. You're in a world of heavyweights. Billy Corgan likes heavyweights. He's got heavyweights. Why are you bringing this guy in? And it's not like they're putting him in cruiserweight or junior heavyweight or middleweight or whatever you want to call it matches. It's just, is he a manager? Is he a wrestler? Are we just morons for not fast forwarding when we see him?
At this point, he's wrestling more than Jordan Clearwater is.
Well, this is the weird part.
And did they drop the name Jordan? Because I swear on this episode, I only heard them call him Clearwater, and maybe I missed it. So if any of those of you who are paying close attention to the show know, did they just call him Clearwater, or did they call him Jordan Clearwater at any point?
They called him Clearwater.
And the reason why that's important to me is, again, we're looking at WWE style crap, where they drop a name, a first name or last name or whatever, to just call them by one name.
Cher. Madonna.
Roseanne.
Well, neither of them are those three.
Luthez points out that Sion wasn't at either tapings, at least not working in front of the audience. And then Terry McDermott wants to remind you all that Sion means wild dog.
Well, I get the dog part.
Cricket moment, because like anytime you bring up Sion, it's too late in the evening right now to bring up Sion because I get tired, and I might. Yeah, okay, all right. I'm gonna say there's 3 wrestler, whatever, if they're even that. There's 3 entities, really 3.5 when you count Austin Idol at this point. Entities on the show that I should get money back every time I have to watch them do anything, and that's Black G's. That's who's the other one? Colby Carino, and then who's the other jabroni that I was talking about that should give me money back for?
Well, you said Sion, Black Bees,
and Colby.
Colby Carino. Okay, those 3 guys. Yeah, anytime those guys are on the show, I should get half off for the next month.
James with the zing of the night. By the time the pay-per-view gets here, he'll just be known as Water.
Okay, that one cracked me up.
That got me. Okay, so let's go to the next match, and I'm going to call this what it is, an NWA Women Tag Team Title Qualifier match. They really do go about these roundabout ways of explaining what these matches are. If Genocide can beat Allison Kay, the former Women's World Champion, then Genocide and her tag team partner Paola, Team Taryn Terrell, get a shot at the Women's Champions Team Hex. So oddly enough, there was no Taryn Terrell ringside. Genocide comes out by herself. One of the things that I'm noticing more and more when I watch Genocide wrestle, she works the body parts. She's not just out there doing power moves when someone of her size like Camille can just go out there and do power moves. She actually works parts of the body, which from the scientific wrestling standpoint, that's pretty cool, and I do enjoy seeing that. I felt like this match was really good to start off with and got really sloppy fast. And I'm going to blame Allison Kay on this one, somebody who I've said time and time again was a great women's world champion and a great contender for that title. I really felt like she looked very disinterested, very unmotivated in this match, and just it felt like she was going through the motions. It got really sloppy at the end. Lady Frost runs out to provide a distraction. I don't know why the referee stops counting because Lady Frost is out there. That's no reason to stop counting your 1, 2, 3. Genocide ends up getting the victory with the 1, 2, 3 with a roll up. Post-match, you have Taryn Terrell celebrating with Genocide. Marty Bell runs out there. She's attending to Allison Kay. Now, Allison Kay, you know, when the referee was counting before Lady Frost came out there, Allison Kay was in control of the match. But after that, she was just rolled up, and then she was very disoriented and looked very lost and confused. So I don't know, maybe there was some sort of injury that I didn't see early on. Maybe that's why the match fell apart the way it did. But Kevin, you go first. Tell me what you thought.
First of all, Jay, I love you. I think you're great. And I know that you have the right to like wrestling how you like it. But when you have a wrestler who's a big power character and they are like a robot, right? They're like the Terminator, right? Like you have to actually be that. And again, I use The Undertaker as like a close type of person you can think of if you were to go, okay, what's the kind of gimmick you're talking about? Like The Undertaker. The Undertaker is a very good technical wrestler, okay? But if he goes out there and wrestles a technical wrestling match, it doesn't look good. You gotta be what you are. Genocide is a big, powerful wrestler who should be somewhat impervious to pain and should be out there, you know, really doing what you said she doesn't do, which is doing a bunch of power moves, making them make sense, because if she can work, then you can put that stuff together well. It's like The Undertaker can work, but it's not. And again, I'm not saying The Undertaker didn't do the arm bar and didn't do certain things, but I'm talking about like when he had a gimmick. What happened? Did that upset Jay?
Yeah, his thing probably died again.
Oh, okay. Well, and it's not a knock against Jay at all. That's not really what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that I just feel like she's got a gimmick. It's a good one, I think. I don't think it's bad, but you can't pretend like you're not dressed the way you're dressed and built the way you're built and just go out there and wrestle completely different than what your character and your body type looks like. That's what I'm getting at.
Sure.
What do you think, Jay?
Well, I'm kind of split down the middle between the two of you. I enjoy the wrestling, so I just like seeing it whenever I see it. But I do understand your point of this isn't a person that you expect to see like amateur moves from or anything like that. And
he's not Luke Hawk's kid. That's who you expect to see that from.
Right. And so, I mean, I do understand. I understand your concept and your idea, and I would agree with you, except for I actually kind of enjoy watching it. So
hey, so do I. Like I like watching good wrestling too. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like I really didn't even like it when I saw The Undertaker doing it. You know, it's like a big guy wrestling like a little guy sometimes. Like it's the same concept. It's like when you watch big guys wrestling like they're little guys. It's just kind of like, look, this is who you are. If you can master it, then you can actually be the best at what you're doing. You're back. Jay, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to upset you enough to where you had to step off.
You hurt my feelings, and I had to take a minute for myself.
No, I don't know if you fully got what I said, but I'm really just saying that wrestling style that a big wrestler like Genocide with a robot-ish gimmick should be kind of playing to that character. I agree with DK. And then I agree. I'm not saying she can't do like an arm wringer or like can't do a wrestling move, but really working a body part is for like Hawk's Aries kid. I can't remember his name now.
PJ.
Hey, PJ. Like PJ working a body part. That's who should be doing that. And I likened it or akin it to like when you see big guys trying to wrestle like little guys, or when you see little guys choke slamming guys twice their size. It just, you know. And I actually will agree with you, Jay. This match was a huge disappointment because this on paper could have been the best match of the week, of like any match. Because you have a really good veteran wrestler in Allison Kay, and then you also have a really good kind of up and coming wrestler in Genocide. They're both athletes. We've seen both of them do really good in terms of like ring positioning, taking their time, being crisp with their moves, telling a good story. And it's just one of those things where it just did not go well. And, you know, I'm going to tell you something, Jay and DK, that Allison Kay would never admit, but I know wrestlers like that. When they're not going over and they don't think they should be doing the job, all of a sudden they're sloppy. All of a sudden the other person's moves don't look so good. All of a sudden the match sucks. And all of a sudden the person that the company's trying to kind of give a shine to looks like crap because the veteran doesn't want to do the job. And I'm just going to tell you that after the match that Allison Kay and Marty Bell had for the tag championships, it ain't like Allison Kay can't go anymore. Give me a break. They had the best match of the weekend. So she can go. To me, if I'm looking at that, like if I'm just being from a worker like standpoint, like she did that on purpose because she didn't want to do the job to Genocide.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, I don't know if that's what happened or not, but it certainly comes across that way. The match was just poor.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, talk about a hot mess. Chelsea Green should have been out there. That was a hot mess of a match. And I'm sorry, but when I watched it, I went ballistic when Lady Frost came down and the referee stopped his pin count. What the blankety blank was that?
I mean, let me just say one thing. If Lady Frost ran to my job and was trying to get my attention, she could get it very easily too. So,
well, okay. Okay, Perv, we understand what you're saying.
Whoa, hey, whoa. Whoa.
Hey.
Oh, well, come on. We know. But anyway, yeah, I
You
mean,
got it, Ron. Sorry, Ron loves my inside the ring psychology. You got it, brother. That's why I'm here.
but if he had just stared at her, that would have been one thing. But, he stopped the count. He was getting up. He was going to get her off the apron. You don't do that. You never stop the count. And then if she had interfered, then you disqualify whoever she interfered. Man, Jay left again.
Yeah, he didn't like your take either.
Apparently it's a thin Jay knot or something. I don't know what it is. Jay's overly sensitive tonight. Jay, you overly sensitive tonight?
No, I pushed a button on the studio and it kicked me out. I didn't know what I was doing. I apologize.
Thank God we don't do this for a living, guys.
Shots fired.
Oh, man.
We make a lot of money if we did this for a living.
I don't know what shots got fired, but you should hear us when we're not on the show.
Yeah, no kidding. But anyway, just getting back to that referee thing, it was ridiculous. No, she wasn't injured during the match. I don't even think, for real. I think that was just part of Kevin's making this whole thing look bad. Maybe they were supposed to do something. She did pull the trunks, but unfortunately, pulling the trunks in the women's wrestling doesn't even make it look like you get any real advantage because, of course, the guys, they'll pull those trunks. But on the women, they're a little more sensitive, and so they just kind of like hold on to them. And which is probably proper. But boy, this match was the epitome of bad booking. So it was sloppy, and the end was trash. 100% complete trash.
Well, and
Terry says you would expect more from a main event, but this wasn't even the main event. This was it
should have been.
I mean, there's still more, unfortunately.
Right, but I
was there? Because I'm pretty sure I may have blacked out after that.
Well, and it's like this is actually across all wrestling promotions right now. That this is gonna go down as the era of the roll-up finish, because I see that finish on every program overused more than anything. Because didn't what's her face win with a roll-up last week?
Yeah, they had 2 matches last week that ended with the roll-up.
Now we got another one this week, and go watch any wrestling program right now. They're winning with roll-ups. And remember the finisher time, the finisher era, everybody won with their finisher. Now everybody's winning. And then it was the false finish thing. Everybody kicks out of everybody's finisher, and we have the false finish. Now we're looking at the roll-up era, which I'm just not a big fan of the same finish every match or 2 or 3 times in a show.
Terry did say he blacked out after that match. And, I mean, with good reason. But let's get to the next segment. And that was, Kevin said it earlier, and I tip my hat to what he said. When you have a guy like Judas and you're trying to build him up as this monster, as this really like big deal, the first thing you're
skipping something.
What am I skipping?
The tag team promo, champion promo. And this is important. Right. This is important because this is where their production really effed it up.
Yep. Go ahead. Lead us in, DK.
All right. So they did a promo with the World Tag Team Champions. And because they did the promo in the empty arena, they put a graphic up on the screen that said recorded earlier. Well, apparently recorded earlier must have been about 3 minutes earlier, because Mae Valentine mentions who's in the finals of the tag team tournament, including Hawkeye, who had just won their tag title match earlier in the show. So they're presenting this like it was recorded before the show, but they said who won on the show. And Kevin, first of all, I want to know how many people caught that. And then Kevin, I just can't wait to hear you talk about how the blank you not redo that, recut it, re-edit. Does nobody watch this show from their side? Oh my gosh. Becky, look at the ass they're making of themselves.
Yeah, and it's in DK, like whatever they're paying or whoever they're paying to do their editing, it's time it's time to get somebody else, or it's time to start paying somebody to edit this show. But we know the latter's not going to happen, nor is the former going to happen, because they probably think they're doing great. And this goes back to production. I feel like one of the strongest things they had on this show was their production. That was like one of the strongest things they had. And the interesting part about that is now you see all these other companies taking this same format and using it, and the NWA is actually going backwards. And the thing they did the best, that all they really had to do was simplify their booking and let their talent go out there and wrestle and cut promos and just keep it super, super simple. And they could easily have built momentum, and now they would be right in the same conversations as these other studio shows and could actually say they're at that level. But the product and the production, the product isn't at that level, number one. And number two, the production now, since they moved into the chase and since they stopped having the fans on camera, or whatever they were doing, man, the building, the production, the setting and everything was like the best, to me, the best part of the show. And it's just they've lost so much of that. And I don't know if it's a cut cost or what, but you know, I'm with you 100%, DK. Like they've blundered so many edits. My wife is an aspiring proofreader, and she just would have a field day on this show.
There was definitely a lot of tech issues, like, and maybe it's because they're not used to shooting at the chase. You know, maybe the confines of shooting at the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studio gave them more access. I don't know, but I mean, there were shots where like the hard cam's moving. The hard cam's not supposed to move. There were things that were shot out of frame, like going to the very beginning of the show with Strictly Business, and there was this big empty canvas next to Tim Storm, and you had all of Strictly Business on one side, and it didn't look good. Anyways,
Well,
Ron Gibson. Ron Gibson
DK.
says that DK was on point about that promo. The show always calls it straight down the line, no bullshit.
Hey, that's us. You know, Jay, I'm going to go on a limb and say they did lose some people backstage that are really good at production. Am I not correct?
Yeah.
And you can tell. Because, again, you know, I don't care how you feel about Dave Marquez, but no one ever made me look better on television than he did. And when I saw this show from the very beginning, I said, oh, this has got to have Marquez. Marquez got to be helping produce this because it looks great. These are things that you need somebody that knows this stuff to help you with. Marquez would have never allowed the lighting to be like this. You know, like there's just so many things I'm watching and I'm going, look, hey, I'm not a production like guru, okay? But if I know this stuff and I'm not like really, that's not my like thing. Who's running? Who's doing? Do they have anybody doing this? I mean, they're running credits at the end of the show, aren't they? And I'm just going, you know, like, come on, man. Like, you know, anyway.
But you know, the bad production, some of this other stuff, that's one thing. But to so blatantly screw up and put a recorded earlier sticker, I mean, you're doing that. That means whoever put it up there, whoever asked them to put it up there, in no way, shape, or form understood what was going on in that promo.
And Ron just said Marquez had a high level of quality control. I mean, he would be barking orders at the cameraman, "Hey, get it in frame." I mean, I would hear it. At the first television taping when he was at the podium, he was yelling at the guy holding the camera, "Hey, you don't have the right look." And he's looking at the camera, not looking at the other side of it. And then what would Luthez said, no one thought any of this out ahead of time, and it shows. And that was a direct quote from a tried and true connected individual who shall now remain nameless, and it was not Crimson. So, I mean, just goes to show you that maybe some of the people there were a little frustrated too. But let's get to the Judas and James Storm match. Now,
I'm trying to avoid that.
Well, no, you can't avoid it. It's just like everything else in life. You have to face it head on. But like Kevin was saying earlier, I mean, this would have been an opportunity again to give Judas a squash. Bring out somebody who has no real value to the show and let Judas crush him. And I don't know, sorry, Captain Yuma, Johnny, I love you. Andrew, I love you. But yeah, he would have been the perfect guy to come out there and just get destroyed. Simple. And if it's Sal Rinauro, again, no big deal. Sorry, Sal, love you. But that's what he should be doing. Having him come out there and having a competitive match against James Storm does neither one of them any bit of good. And the fact of the matter is, it wasn't even a competitive match. James Storm handed him his ass. The referee called the match because he couldn't get James Storm off of Judas. That doesn't build a lot of hope for me for Judas as a character, nor does it build that match for me wanting to see it. James Storm already whooped him. He whooped him right there. We saw it. I don't need to see a match. I know that Storm has his number. So, again, the booking, what's going on here? DK, I know you said you wanted to avoid it, but what's going on?
Idiocy.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Let's look at this. First of all, nothing against Sinister Minister, Judas, whatever. Is this the person you want to bring in and start pushing immediately to a top place on the card against your supposedly second most valuable title? I mean, and for me, the answer is no.
No.
There was nothing in Judas that just makes me go, "Oh, wow, this is awesome. I can't wait to see him and, Adonis or him and anybody else." So then you bring in James Storm, you put them in the ring together, you can go, "Oh, well, we can get a Haas fight or something like that." Man, they worked light. I mean, it wasn't even like it was two big men doing big men things. They worked light. It went to go 2 minutes before it was thrown out. I mean, it was short. And again, I may have blocked parts out to save my sanity. And it didn't make sense. It did nothing to get Judas over. In fact, as you pointed out, quite the opposite. It didn't really get Storm over. And I didn't really... Who, what, why, where, what was the purpose? What was... When you were setting this up, what were you expecting, or how were you expecting the fans to react? So I don't really care to see a rematch. And quite honestly, even if it, been a normal match where one of them got pinned or whatever, I probably wouldn't want to see a rematch. But, I mean, there was nothing about this that made me go, okay, I see some story progression. I see, what they're trying to do. I have no clue what they were trying to do there. Kevin, do you have any clue what they were trying to do there? Yeah, exactly. I'm back to my problem.
I feel like I'm with Terry McDermott. I kind of forgot about this match. Judas is just not good. He's not any good, and I'm gonna say, if I had to guess who would have been the one to say no one thought any of this ahead of time, and it shows, maybe that's James Storm. Because imagine him taking a little time away and then coming back to this. I'm sorry, but if I'm taking bookings right now, and again, I say not necessarily myself, but if I'm on MLW's radar, if I'm on AEW's radar, if I'm even on Impact's radar or ROH, I'm not taking my bookings with NWA that seriously. If I'm not under contract, by the way they're using wrestlers, and just it's like I would take an indie wrestling show differently than I took my like when I went to work for Marquez, like it was a very serious ordeal because I knew Dave took it really serious, and for me it was something that I'm trying to use his platform to further my career, and I know that in doing that it's going to help his show. And so there's a seriousness about it. And, you know, when I did some of my stuff with like Hobo, it was a little hokey. You know, I was very strategic in like how I allowed all it to go down. And, you know, Dave knowing me as well, it was like, if we're going to do a storyline like this, you know, it can't take away from the seriousness of my character and the competitiveness that my character likes to portray. And if you want to show like a more entertainment side of me, that's fine, but you still have to give me an opportunity to show that I'm still serious about wrestling. And I don't see how I could take this show seriously if I was a part of it. Even if I was under contract with the NWA, it would be hard to take it seriously. And I would be looking at, okay, I'm going to use this show to help me get a contract somewhere else where they take wrestling a little more serious.
Okay, David. Excuse me. Kevin and Jay. So you've both been to Dave Marquez produced shows. You've both been on Dave Marquez produced shows. So it wouldn't surprise me to know that like Marquez probably has a production sheet ready for his shows, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know what a production sheet is, that's a sheet that's put together. You give it to the people involved at the beginning, and it says, okay, we're filming these matches and these orders and these interviews. And, you know, this is what episode 1's going to be. This is what episode 2 is going to be. This is what episode 3 is going to be. That's what episode 4 is going to be, assuming it's a standard four show taping.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so it puts everything together, puts everything in line, and you can read it out, and then you can make adjustments as, you know, the day progresses. Somebody gets hurt, something happens, question mark gets over when they weren't expecting them to, you know, that type of thing. And so you can tell that should be a very basic concept and idea. I mean, it even tells you when the commercial breaks on.
Yep.
And you can tell that this show has none of that. This is a Paulie dangerously, let's record a bunch of shows and then we'll figure out what to do with them afterwards.
Well,
yeah.
and go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, and it shows. That's all.
Well, and I also think, like, to Paulie's credit, and again, maybe it doesn't stand the test of time, but at the time, for his shows, at least they had content. Even if the matches weren't in some like larger story arc, if you're getting like ECW TV and you're getting, you know, RVD versus Scotty Riggs or you know, Jerry Lynn versus, you know, Devon Dudley or something, like the match is going to be good, even if it's not really part of like a main story. And that's where the NWA really, really drops the ball, is they don't have good matches. And I just think that has been the thing I've been saying for a long time, is that the wrestling content of this show is not carrying its weight. And when you have bad wrestling content and you have hokey storylines, it just makes it really hard to take it seriously.
Well, Lance Storm has said in the past, rightfully or wrongfully, what ECW did is that every guy that was out there trying to have the best match possible. Now, it didn't always do much for trying to build the storylines sometimes, but at least, like he said, if it didn't make any sense to the work, in the ECW wrestling world, as far as the story was concerned, you were at least watching a really good match.
Yep.
And so now we don't. Now the booking is shit, the stories are shit, and the wrestling is shit. Sorry, I figured they can say that on AEW and Next 2.0. We can say it too.
So I want to point out a few things, right? Because Kevin started the show when we were talking about early on of how to book guys, and what we said about Judeus is he's a guy that would have benefited from some squash matches. And, this guy isn't just a brand new wrestler who just happened to fall in Billy Corgan's lap. This is a guy who's been at it for a while. I mean, between NWA Anarchy, NWA Wildside, Impact Wrestling, shows in Puerto Rico. In the chat, I just put up a clip from the 60th anniversary show where he was working a match with Iceberg and Phil Shatter. And that was 10 years ago. So when you have a guy who's been at it for that long, I mean, if you can't figure it out how to use him, why even bother bringing him onto the show? Because you didn't do him any favors by putting him in the ring with James Storm and having him get his ass handed to him. Let's move on. This clearly was not a good night for the NWA. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to the NWA fans. I'm sorry to the NWA faithful. If you guys put your money into this show and expecting to get a good product, you were disappointed. And it sucks. And I was talking to NWA Gold about this, and he said something that stuck with me. And he said, man, you had 2 solid pay-per-views, really, really good stuff. And then it's almost unwatchable at this point. And he's not wrong. Guys, we say this a couple of times a month now, that if it wasn't for this show, I wouldn't be subscribed right now. It's not good. If I watch another wrestling program for free on YouTube and it's not good, I could say, well, I didn't spend any money on it. It was for free. If you're watching SW Fury, if you're watching Championship Wrestling Memphis, if you're watching Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and you don't like it, you didn't pay for it. You're paying for this. You're paying for this. And I don't care if it's $5 or $500. You're putting your money into this brand, and sometimes it's just not that good. And oftentimes it's bad. So that takes us to the main event. Again, why are we getting a triple threat match? There's no reason why any of these men should be in the ring with each other. Doesn't make a lick of sense. Instead of the War Kings, you got Plunkett and Crimson. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Got the End.
I'm sorry.
Look, I love watching the End wrestle. And then you put
Jay,
they called it the Dream Team of Trevor.
Go
ahead, Kevin.
I gotta interrupt. James Jackson probably dropped
I saw
the
this.
of the night. We can't go. We gotta recognize this. Jay, you want to do the honors?
Every month I pay fight, and in my head I hear, sorry about your damn luck. That was my best. Sorry.
Oh, James, you wonderful guy, you.
Oh my God. Woo, that was okay. I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, Jay. I'm sorry. That was just
that's fine. No, that was worth stopping. That was worth me taking a pause. But again, this booking doesn't make any sense. You put the End. It was a great tag team in with Plunkett and Crimson, Team Tried and True, I guess. And then they called it the Dream Team of Trevor Murdoch and the Pope. Now, this would be interesting if this was like Latimer and Adonis, or this would be interesting if this was like Latimer and Aldis. But this is a nonsensical booking. Again, this match doesn't make any sense. And in the very early part of it, we see it's a triple threat tag team match. Again, I know Terry McDermott's in there thinking, why don't they just make a triple threat title? Because that's what Billy Corgan loves. Trevor gets injured in the match. Now, I don't know if that's a work injury or if that's a shoot injury, but if it's a shoot injury, what a dumb way to get hurt in a match that was almost pointless. The end of the match is basically the end gets kind of knocked out of the ring, and your boy Elijah Burke hits the Elijah Express on Plunkett, and he scores the 1-2-3. We'll get more after the match, but first let's just talk about the match. Again, it wasn't horrible, but the booking just made no sense whatsoever. DK, thoughts on this one?
Okay. Your first chance of seeing your new NWA World Heavyweight Champion in the ring on NWA Power is in the most meaningless match I could think of. Two thrown together tag teams versus an established tag team. And we already know how much I love three-ways. You know how much I just love it when they do 3 men in a match. It's the most exciting thing that I ever lived through is when they do that. So how do you make that even better? Ooh, I want. You do a 3-way tag team match because that makes everything better. Oh my effing goodness. Who is smoking what crack and keep it away from me? Because I don't want to experience that. And then you put your world champion in, and like in the first thing he attempts to do, he goes down with a leg injury. Now, I didn't see anything that made me think, ooh, wow. You know, I can't believe, he hurt himself in either a work or a shoot type way. So I'm going to lean towards the idea that it's actually a work. So, he tags out almost immediately. He's limping the entire match. So, here's getting your world champion over. First wrestling move he's in a NWA ring since winning the title, and he's hurt. So then you put on what was another sloppy, not good match in which not one person cared about anything that was going to happen. And, Pope wins. So I, have already started blotting this out of my memory to ease my emotional pain. Kevin, what were you able to do with this? Anything?
Not really. I mean, this is probably the second week now that I found myself like glazed over by the time the main event came on. And all right, raise your hand if you were surprised that this match was crap. Nobody. We all knew it wasn't going to be good. And I don't like 3-way matches that much. They don't bother me that bad. But these matches where it's a 3-way tag and all 3 guys are in the match at the same time, it's dumb. Like this actually would have been better if it was like a 6-man. But even then, there was really no build-up. There was no point. There was nothing really that made it make any sense. If Trevor Murdoch got hurt, legit, okay. If he didn't get hurt, legit, it was part of the story. That's a stupid story. if he did get hurt, it's stupid that you had him out there anyway in this match. Again, kind of like the Allison Kay genocide match. Like, if you were to throw a match with these same, not necessarily wrestlers, but these same type of characters together on like an NXT show, this match would have stole the show. And that's because I know that because I've seen them put these matches together and gone, oh man, I don't know. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh man, they really proved me wrong. This was not that. This was like just a big. It's just like when you put a bunch of the wrong ingredients together and try to make food, and it just tastes like, ugh. That's just kind of how it was. But I mean, in most places, in the good wrestling companies, if you put the heavyweight champion, a top contender together, you put one of your top tag teams out there, and then you put together, I forgot who the other team was.
The End.
No, we had the End. No, but who was it? The End, Trevor and Pope, and then
Plunkett and
yeah.
And
what
Crimson.
the heck? But even then, like, say you put a workhorse and then a blue chipper in there together, they would have put together a good match. I feel like it could have been a good match. It just kind of like the Allison Kay genocide. It just wasn't. And I'm gonna chalk it up to not a lack of effort in the ring. I'm gonna chalk it up to a lack of effort in preparation in putting the match together, because that's something I've noticed a lot with the NWA is the matches just seem to be kind of like fly by the seat of your pants, and that's fine if you're a good wrestler and you're good at that. But you can, like, if you put Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero in the ring together on one, you say, okay, just go fly by the seat of your pants. It's going to be a good match, but you can't put a three-way tag match together with three guys in the ring and not have a clue really how the whole thing's really going to go. And if you're going to have moments where it's kind of impromptu, kind of fly by, you got to like plan those moments out so that like you say, all right, we're going to give some room right here in this match, or we're just going to like whatever happens. Actually, that's actually really fun for the audience because they've seen the match kind of have a structure up to that point. And now they're like, oh, hell's broke loose. This is great. As opposed to the whole match, you're like, what's going, I don't know. What's really happening right now? Like there's just a difference. There's a difference. And I always tell people this, that it's only improv when you have a plan. When you have no plan, it's not improv. You're just winging it. And nothing good in sports or entertainment come from just winging it. You need to at least have a plan in advance and stick to the plan. And if you're going to wing it, you're doing it on purpose.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair point. The bottom line is that wasn't a good match. It wasn't a good way to present it. I don't think anybody tell me someone who enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think you're going to find anyone that enjoyed it. And I think the worst thing about it is it was a wasted opportunity because this could have been anything. Like, if you're going to have the End, I mean, why not have the End and Strictly Business have a match? Have a match that it could mean something. This meant nothing. And if it was just to play up bringing Jack Stane out to challenge, which is what happens next, it's still like that. I feel like they missed the boat on it. So we get Jack Stane, who, because all of a sudden this thing is transitioned from that you get a shot at the title to Money in the Bank. Jack Stane comes out and rightfully so, as a heel, as the bad guy. He's doing his best to come out there and get heat. And he's going to take advantage of the champ. He's going to challenge for the champ. And then Crimson, who all of a sudden has the knockout power of Mike Tyson, gets one shot, and Dane is down. And then they just throw out the match, and then the credits roll. We don't get the world title match that Jack Stane was proposing for. And it just kind of felt like, again, this was a wasted opportunity. I don't want Jack Steen to go out there and challenge and not win the title, but him going out there and having a match would have been more significant than the match not happening. Kevin, what were your thoughts?
It was kind of one of those things where it's never good. It's never good to start an idea with, it would be cool if. Okay, let me rephrase that. It would be cool if should never outweigh it would make sense if. So if you're going to do it would be cool if, it needs to make sense if. And the problem here is actually it is a cool concept of like, how many times have we ever seen like a Money in the Bank situation where, you know, you thought they were about to cash it in, and then the person that they're rival, you know, one of the people that they're rivaling with, you know, cuts them off to not be able to take advantage of that. That's a cool idea, actually. It's not a bad idea, but the way they did it, I thought was what was like very confusing, because it's like you're in control. It's not like you can't control how this thing's going to go down. So if you're putting the idea together, why are you going to let the bell get rang and then have the referee make a decision to throw the match out and save Jack Stane's thing? Because in reality, Jack Stane should have lost it. But again, you don't have any of that if we all know Jack Stane's running out there to cash it in. We know he's going to do that. He gets ready to cash it in, gets ready to tell the ref. Then Crimson turns him around out of nowhere, cold cocks him before he can take advantage of the opportunity. And now we all know what happened. And now we don't have to have the big confusing like, I guess Jack Stane's not getting it now. Did he lose it? Or, I mean, who makes that call on the fly like that? I mean, you avoid all the convolution if you just think a little bit more about what you're going to do, because the idea wasn't a bad idea. I'm just going to say I didn't hate the idea. I just hated the execution. So
DK?
Yeah, I hated the idea. First of all, I don't like Money in the Bank type situations. I feel they truly devalue a title. And so I'm not going to go on any more about that. Just, I hate those types of situations. This is why I think Murdoch's injury was a work, because this is what made Dane want to go out there and challenge him, because we have an injured champion. They're building towards this big cage match between Dane and Crimson. Well, I don't want to see it now. Crimson knocks him out with one punch. Even if it was a quote-unquote sucker punch, it doesn't matter. He was still out, unable to wrestle. So just, you know, so now we're going to go with this prolonged story about when is Jack's going to cash in his title match. God, that just kill me. So I got a champion who can't wrestle without getting injured. I got a guy that can be knocked out by one punch, kind of like he was knocked out on one first episode where they were teaming together when he fell and he was pulled off the ring and hit his head on the ring apron and was out for 20 minutes or something entirely. And I swear Next did that move for like the next 7 weeks in a row. And half the time the person that happened to got the pin in the end. If I didn't know better, I would have thought somebody from NXT was watching.
They were.
And it's just, I mean, how do you go into a show and make every single thing, every single wrestler look bad? How?
They showed you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Jay?
What you got?
Does Jax Dane, does this tarnish him? Does this hurt him? The fact that punch, that sucker punch, does that hurt the mystique of this new Jack Dane 2.0? Or is it just, look, it's a bunch of gobbledygook?
It's a bunch of crap because we all know it won't mean anything in the future. He'll get hit with that same punch 900 times in the cage match, and, you know, there's a 50-50 chance he'll still win it. So
I don't think it does necessarily because he's a heel. So it was kind of like, this is what you expect out of a heel, you know? And what I fully expect Jax to do is either, you know, completely play the victim, or if I'm him, if it's me, I'm acting like I didn't even remember it happening. Like, never happened. Like, what are you talking about? Anyways, I should be the #1 contender. This conversation should be about when I'm going to challenge for my title match. Yeah, but Jax, the last time you did it, you got knocked out. Listen, we're not talking about the past. Well, you get what I'm saying? Like if in this current mode of Jax Dane, if he does it right, he can actually use stuff like this to his advantage because he can get a little laugh out of us and play the same game he played with Gary Horn when he, you know, he's controlling the narrative of the conversation. Still,
Kevin, did you just use the phrase "if they do it right"? Was there anything in this episode that made you think that they can do it right?
I doubt it, but you know, it's funny. I still my favorite thing that the NWA has done post pay-per-view was Jax Dane saying that Trevor Murdoch called him out because he said he would take on the biggest, the baddest, whoever, and he said, well, he must have been talking about me. Look, if Jax Dane can give me more of that, then, you know, I would say then it might be worth sticking around for $5 as long as I can get more of that. But chances are, if the NWA does what it normally does, they'll pull that from the TV for whatever reason, or turn Jack's face now that he's the hottest heel they got. But DK, we didn't. The highlight of the show last week was Jax Dane somehow or another hearing that Trevor Murdoch called him out specifically because Trevor Murdoch said that he was willing to take on the biggest and the baddest that the NWA had to offer. And then Jax Dane said, well, that's me. So you might as well have just been calling me out specifically. DK, was that a highlight for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually liked this version of Jax Dane. I've enjoyed it immensely. I certainly liked it better than the non-talking Jax Dane that was world champion a few years back.
I'll say this. I know that I can speak for all three of us that we could all say that Jax Dane, good dude. We like him a lot. We're very happy with the progression of his character, and that's one thing that we're very happy that the NWA is doing right now. This heel Jax Dane has been money. And whoever came up with this, if it's Billy, tip of my hat to you, Billy, because this is great. This is where we want it to go. But it can't just be one part of the show. It's got to be on all cylinders. And if there was a weak part of the show, that would be okay. But the entire show this week was weak. And if I was going to give a grade, and I normally am, I try to be the optimist out of the three of us. And I usually say, it was like an A, and DK will be like, it was like a C+, and Kevin will be like, it was like a C minus. I'm going to tell you, the show was a D minus. It was not good. I mean, there were parts of it that it's still like, there was some value to it, but overall, not happy as a consumer, not happy as a wrestling fan, not happy as a podcaster, not happy as a journalist, not happy having to defend the NWA to people who don't watch it, because this just wasn't good. So I think that's going to wrap it up for the show. We're going to do our goodbyes. DK, if they can follow you on social media, how do they do it?
Twitter at DKMFWTX.
Kevin?
You can find me at Kevin Lee Frazier. So the name you see on the screen, just with a Lee in the middle of it. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram there. Not super active, but I would actually say you guys have something to look forward to. My post about my new Hammerstone t-shirt. I will be modeling that. I'm pretty pumped about it. And that's probably going to be the highlight of my Instagram over the next couple of weeks. That's all I really got going on. If you want to check out some of my wrestling matches, you can find me on YouTube. Just search Kevin Douglas Wrestling and you'll find me.
Obviously, my camera has stopped, so I'm still here. But, when we go 2 hours, the camera battery just doesn't last as long as it should. So if you'd like to support the podcast, you could do so by visiting the merch site in the description below. You can also follow us on all social medias at the Alliance blog, and that's Facebook, that's Twitch, that's TikTok, that's Tumblr, everywhere. And that's going to do it for us again. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate you guys week in and week out. Dave Scooby, Ron Gibson, Matthew Underwood, Terry McDermott, James H. Jackson, anyone else I might have forgotten. We do appreciate you guys being here. Luthez, Willie. And if I forgot you, I'm sorry, but we love you guys. And that's going to do it for us. So until next time, we will see you at the matches. Have a good night.